In the last few lectures, we implemented the CRUD functionality for the courses state in our application. So if I go to our application, here a user can create a new course, he can edit a course, he can also delete a course. Okay, and if we reload the page, all the courses will be fetched from the Firebase database. But all these operations can be performed even by a non-logged in user, a non-authenticated user. Currently, if you see, no user is logged into this application. That's why we can see this login and sign up link. And still, I can go ahead and I can create a new course or delete a new course. So for example, let me try to create a new course. So again, I'm going to create the Node.js course. I'm going to copy this title from here. Let's create it. Let me copy this description and I'll paste it in the description field. Let's say author is Jane Smith, price is 79.99, and let's also select an image for this course. Okay, now if I go ahead and if I click on this create course button, remember that no user is logged in, and still a non-logged in user is also able to create a course. But this we don't want to allow. We might want to allow to fetch all the courses. So a non-authenticated user, an anonymous user, should be able to fetch all the courses, but he should not be able to create, edit, or delete a course. So we are going to implement authentication for performing CRUD operation. For that, the first step will be in our Firebase database, we are going to change the rule. Currently, what we have done is for read and write operation, we have set it to true. That means any user can read the data from this database and write data to this database. But now what I want is only an authenticated user should be able to add or edit data in the database. So for that, I'll say auth not equal to null. So here I'm also not allowing anonymous user to read the data. In the same way, I'll also say for write operation also, auth should not be equal to null. So only an authenticated user should be able to perform read and write operation. Let me publish this. And here we have an error. The reason for that is this expression should come within double quotes like this. Okay, now let's publish this. And the security rules have been updated. All right, now if we go to our application and if we try to fetch all the courses, you'll see that we have an error and it says something went wrong, cannot fetch courses. And if I open network tab, let me clear everything here. And if I reload the page to this courses.json, a request has been sent. And there, if you see in the response, we are receiving 401 unauthorized. So we are not able to fetch all the courses because since no user is logged in, a non-authenticated user is not authorized to access this courses.json to fetch data from this courses.json file, basically from the courses collection in our Firebase database. Now what I will do is, let me go ahead and let me log in a user. So here I'm going to log in john@gmail.com. Okay, and let's specify a password for this user, which is test1234, and let's log in this user. So now we have a logged in user. Let me clear everything from here. And again, let's go to courses. And again, when we are trying to fetch all the courses, we are getting this error. Something went wrong, cannot fetch courses. And you can see again, we have this 401 status code in the response. That means unauthorized. Now here, we have logged in a user, but still we are getting this unauthorized response. Why is that? That's because when we are sending a request to this courses.json, basically to this API, to this database URL, in that request, we are not specifying that that request is coming from an authenticated user. To do that, what we need to do is with the request, we also need to pass the access token of the logged in user. And to do that, what we can do is let's go to course service.ts file. And here, for now, let's work with this read courses. So here, when we are sending a request to this URL to fetch all the courses. With this request, we also need to pass the authentication token. And when we are working with Firebase Database API, there we need to pass an auth query string with the request. And that auth query string should be assigned with the authentication token. So here what I can do is, to this URL, we can specify a query string called auth, and this we need to assign with the access token of the logged in user. So here I'm going to use a template literal syntax, and inside that we need to specify the access token of the logged in user. Now how are we going to get the access token of the logged in user? We are saving the access token of the logged in user in the user object. So here what I'll do is I will inject an instance of store class. This is going to be of type store, and let's specify the type for the store, which is app state. Okay, and we also need to import this store from NgRx store. Once we have the instance, inside this constructor, we are going to write a logic where we will say this dot store dot select, and here we are going to select get logged user. So here we have created a get logged user selector. We are going to select that, and now we are going to subscribe to that. Okay, and to this subscribe method, let's pass a callback function. And inside this callback function, we are going to receive the data which this get logged user observable will return us. For now, let me simply go ahead and let me log that data. All right, and here we have an error at this line. So for now, let me just pass some random value here. Let's save the changes here. Let's go to our application and let me go to developer console. And here you can see an object has been logged. So basically the user object has been logged. All right, so now what we are going to do is, here I'll simply say, okay, here first I'm going to create a property. So before this constructor, let me create a property. I'll call it as logged user, and this is going to be of type user, or it will be null. And initially let's set it to null. And now inside this subscribe method, we will say this dot logged user equals the user object, I mean the data, the user object which we are receiving inside this data parameter. With this, let's save the changes. Let's scroll down, and now here we are going to get the access token from the logged user. So here I'll say this dot logged user dot, so this logged user should have an access token property, right? And here I'll also use this optional chaining operator because initially this logged user will be null. So it looks fine to me. Let's save the changes and let's go to our application, and here we have some error and it says cannot find name user. Okay, I think we have not imported this user interface. So let's import it from user model. Now let's save the changes. Let's go to our application, and now you can see it is successfully able to fetch all the courses. And the reason for that is now we are attaching this auth query parameter with the request, and to that auth we are assigning the access token of the logged in user. Now what we can also do is, instead of specifying it inside this URL as the second argument, we can pass an optional object. Okay, so to this get method we can pass a second optional object. There we can specify the query parameters. So here I'm going to specify params. This is going to be an instance of new HTTP params. Okay, and using the set method, we are going to set a query parameter here. The name of the query parameter should be auth. This is must. Okay, the name cannot be anything. it must be auth, and to this we are going to assign this dot logged user dot access token. So now we are specifying the query parameter for this request URL using this params option, this params property. Let's save the changes. Let's go back to our application. And now again we have an error and it says a comma is expected. So, okay, here it should not be colon, it should be a comma. Let's save the changes now. And again, it is able to read all the courses from the database. Now, remember that currently we are sending this access token only when we are reading the courses. If we try to delete a course or update a course, it will not work. So here also we should get an error saying that cannot delete the course, because with the delete request, we are not sending this access token. Here, if you see with this delete request, we are not specifying the auth query parameter. And to that, we are not assigning the access token. So that's why we are not able to delete a course. We should also not be able to update a course, because with the request, we are not sending the auth query parameter with the access token. And for creating a course also, we will not be able to perform this because we are not passing the auth query parameter with the access token. So just like how we have specified the access token here for this get request, in the same way, we need to specify this access token with this auth query parameter for all other requests. Now, instead of doing it like this, instead of specifying the auth query parameter and then assigning it with the access token for all the requests, what we are going to do is in the next lecture, we are going to create an interceptor, and that interceptor will take care of adding this access token for all the requests which we are going to make from our Angular application. Okay, so from here also I am going to remove this. Instead, we will use an interceptor to add this access token to all our requests. So let me remove it from here. Let's save the changes, and I'm also going to remove this store from here and this logic from here, because now we are not going to get the logged in user in this class. So I can also remove this property. But I hope now you got how we can pass the access token with the request in order to perform CRUD operation in our Firebase database. So in the next lecture, let's create an interceptor which will add that access token to all the requests. This is all from this lecture. If you have any questions from this lecture, then feel free to ask it. Thank you for listening and have a great day.